What is my investing strategy to accumulate the most amount of wealth over time? Now, if you're not new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, turn on your bell notifications. Everything I say here is very time sensitive. Now, one of my most frequently asked questions is, can I talk to you guys about the way that I sort of approach my investing strategy and how I kind of set myself up for the future? So there's different kind of strategies that people want to take on depending on where you are in life. I know that most of you guys are probably between the ages of like 25 to about 40. And so that's the ideal range, in my opinion, where you've basically built up some amount of money and you want to build for the future because you recognize that inflation is eating your paycheck. There's not really any kind of way to escape inflation. And so you're looking for assets that are going to outpace the inflation. Because technically speaking, you need about 15 to 20% more every single year just to keep up with your purchasing power, which basically means your dollars are going to go less and less over time because governments tend to just print your money away. And so there's different kind of vehicles to use when it comes to building up your wealth. And obviously crypto is very popular in this regard because it has this sort of reputation of building, the whole get rich quick scheme type of like stigma, I guess, or I don't know how you would kind of categorize it, but people look at crypto as like a get rich quick scheme. And, obviously it does tend to outpace basically every single market because of its relative market cap. However, there's always these kind of trends that you need to be aware of. And I think that right now you can't discount that we've been in a massive bull run when it comes to the stock market. You have gold and silver all-time highs. AI is like very, very powerful. And I know that there's like a whole AI crypto narrative that hasn't really played out, in my opinion. Like obviously there was a narrative back in around like 2024-ish, but that hasn't really been the case. And so it doesn't really matter what your investing strategy necessarily is. It matters more so like what your overall goal is to accumulate your wealth. Now, what I mean by this is, I want to have money put away for the future. I want something that's going to continuously outpace inflation, and I want to have a risk-adjusted return. And what that basically means is diversification. So I know that this is primarily a crypto channel, but I'm also diversified into real estate. I do have precious metals such as copper, gold, silver. That is a smaller portion of my portfolio. And then obviously there's different kinds of stocks that I'm also invested in. Obviously I'm really big on Tesla. I like Google. There's a lot of other kind of like lower cap, higher risk, like artificial intelligence plays, just because I think that that's where the future is going to go. I think that, the computing power, the GPUs, and pretty much everything in the future is going to basically be done by AI. And so I think that that has a massive future in terms of, investing. And I think that it makes a lot of sense to diversify. Now, obviously, depending on where you are, you always want to make this strategy based on your goals, right? Because I have a longer time horizon. And so I'm okay to accumulate wealth, I would say like kind of slower and steadily versus like taking on such an aggressive approach. Now, obviously, the younger you are, the more risk you can technically take on. And, also varying like with your risk appetite, right? There's some people that are like, hey, I just want to throw everything into, I have a buddy who threw all his money just literally into altcoins at the bottom of the market. And he like got like a 50x return in a couple months and he got out of crypto. He's done. He bought like a car, he bought some watches, he bought some like stocks too. I wouldn't really suggest like that path necessarily, but it's just an example, right? Like of your types of investors. And so for me, I do a lot of fitness. I do a lot of, I like to have like family time. Like family is important to me. I prioritize my relationships. And so my whole thing is I want to set myself up for the future so that I'm not basically slaving away to make money or like a paycheck. Because when you have a lot of money and you accumulate wealth, you basically get your time back. And what I also see happening is there's a lot of people that will spend their whole life making as much money as they can, but they sacrifice their health and relationships, or it's like vice versa, right? And so for me, I like to have everything in a very well-rounded sort of fashion. And so, I established myself into like sort of like certain investments, right? And, I was basically a online fitness like coach, mentor, trainer. I got involved in real estate pretty early where I was like cash flowing some money. I started other companies that were generating cash flow. And so I was basically investing that into crypto. And obviously crypto was a lot smaller in market cap at the time. And so what tends to happen is you just kind of compound your returns. And, there was periods I would say where I was like 100% pretty much in crypto. That wasn't always like the best play in hindsight. Like this is my third 4-year cycle at this point in crypto. And so I have seen my net worth get like sliced many times and then it goes back, sliced, so on. And so I don't really want to have that approach anymore, because as you accumulate more money, you tend to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to your investments, and you're okay with smaller returns because there's a bigger piece of the pie. There's like this saying where it's like, 10% of a watermelon is way better than 100% of a grape. And there's a lot of truth to that, and I think a lot of people get greedy, they take on way too much risk, and then they end up like losing all their money, or they're just so stressed out that they can't even focus on the other joys in life. And so the best thing that I can kind of tell you is, you always want to have some source of income where you're generating some kind of like paycheck, where you're basically living comfortably, right? And you always want to, depending on like how old you are, right? Like if you're younger, you always want to live below your means, and just pretty much like set all the rest into investments. Like it doesn't always have to be into crypto. It can be into anything that you kind of are like passionate about, right? And when I say passionate, I mean like don't just like buy some like a certain stock because you like that kind of like stock, but like, be passionate about like it. Some people love to go into like artificial intelligence plays. Some people like to go into, I don't know, like Bitcoin, crypto, real estate, right? Silver, metal, things of that nature. Develop some sort of style that makes you very comfortable. And if you're somebody that wants like, higher risk appetites, then this is like not financial advice in any way, but always have the backbone of your investing portfolio. That's my Megan Fox background, by the way. You always want to like have a very strong backbone to your portfolio, and then have like a smaller percentage. Maybe it's like 1% of your portfolio, depending on how much money you have, or it's 5%. There you can be a little bit more degenerate, right? And you can do like maybe like low leverage like trading, so that you get that kind of like that dopamine rush, and you're kind of like scratching that itch, so to speak. And if you lose, then you're not losing that much money. Or there's plenty of like prop firms. Breakout Prop Firm is a great platform that you can use, where you basically, it's like $60 and you get access to like $5,000, or it's like $100, you get access to $10,000 if you pass the challenges. That way, like you would obviously mitigate your downside, and then if you like pass the challenge and you have access to those funds. But I would not be, gambling and just like throwing all these like, all your money away on like super risky bets. The name of the game is just accumulation. And in my opinion, if you're in crypto, you really want to be basically accumulating like Bitcoin, Solana, even like BNB, because like Binance is just a mammoth in the industry, right? A lot of different things, right? And then once you kind of have like that diversification, just continue to get better out in the real world, learn how to make money, and you'll get to a point to where your money is just compounding over time. And so you don't really need that much risk to still get, maximum upside, building your wealth, all that kind of stuff. And then learn about how the markets kind of fluctuate, learn about, artificial intelligence. I think that that's going to be a massive, massive sector coming into the future, right? And so I'm gonna maybe make another video on like how you can possibly make money with artificial intelligence. Maybe you can sell to like businesses. That's something that I've been kind of messing with lately, where you can use like vibe coding, or you can use, or depending on how much money you have, right? You can hire developers to make these apps for you, and you can integrate these into, smaller businesses that'll pay you thousands of dollars a month. And that way you can generate an income and then just invest that into crypto. And it's kind of like a win-win, right? Because you're playing both sides of the field. So yeah, anyway, hope that makes sense. If there's any kind of confusion, questions, comments, just drop them below. And like I said, make sure you're following, subscribe. I'm gonna try to help you guys both make money and save the amount of money you make. Because another thing that I've really learned is it's not so much making money in crypto, it's keeping the money that you make. Because it's pretty easy to make money as long as you have a longer time frame in mind. But what happens is a lot of people don't take profits, they get way too greedy. And it's very easy to just see the portfolio or your net worth get cut like that, right? Like it's like, the whole market can drop, at the top of the cycle, 20% in a day, 30% in a day, and you're kind of just like stuck and you never take profits, because it's like, oh, I'm down so much, like I should just hold on, because like I'll sell it if it goes higher, and then it never goes higher. And that's just kind of like the games that these whales play, right? So again, I will continue to update you guys and give you guys more of like my sort of like mindset when it comes to approaching my investing strategy. So again, see y'all soon. Bye.